Hey everybody, I wanted to leave a video that takes you through the Project 2 lesson just in case you weren't in class today. You can see that our Project 2 is really about both how to carve for the first time, we'll be moving into carving, and also how to create a background or use the space around your subject. So you can see in this print to the left, we have a sea turtle, and just using kind of wavy curved lines, you're using the background to create a sense of water and movement. So how do we use the whole print block to create a really interesting image? When we're talking about background, we're always talking about the space around the subject of your print, but it really can be anything. The big thing is you don't want it to be just blank. So you can see with the diver figure, it's just lines carved straight across, but it also could be more complicated. The owl has a texture of bark or potentially raindrops just by making curvy lines. The dog in the right corner actually has a light source that affects how the dog is carved. Certain parts are lighter than the others. It could just be textural. So you can see the moth, it's just lines kind of radiating out, which reads almost as light. So just what are we doing with that background space to make a really interesting image? The one on the top left, I think, is a good example of how to use lines to create environments. So you can see there's sort of a swirly curve shape, which you can interpret as a sun or as the sky. And then little jagged shapes kind of look like water. So you're creating a whole scene just by really simple lines. The one on the right, your background can be almost the whole scene. So if you're sort of interested in creating a landscape or an environment, the boat's actually a very small part of the print, and most of the print is actually the background. So there's different ways you can go about it. The big thing is there is something. So the picture on the left is an example of one that does not have a background. The picture on the right, even though there is still a lot of blank space, they're using the space around the parrots or the birds to create a sense of space with some leaves and some flowers. So you can have blank space. It's not that you can't, but you're just thinking about what is around the main focus of my print. So you're going to get an idea sheet that is the same size as the print you're going to make, which is a 4x6 rubber block this time. We will not be using foam. We'll be actually carving. So I would highly suggest you sketch it out. And on the back of it are some of the examples from the slideshow that might help get you thinking about how am I going to create a really interesting background. All right, and now it is demo time. Hey everybody, I wanted to take you through our next project just in case you weren't here to kind of hear the directions. Our main focus of the project is thinking about having a subject but also how to use the space around it, so specifically a background. How can you use the extra space in the print to create a really visually interesting image? So you can see my main focus is an owl figure kind of popping up, but then I have some trees and a moon, and I'm going to add some stars and things. We're going to be working with a very different type of print block this time. We're going to be working with a rubber piece of material that we're going to actually carve into and remove. So we'll be using carving tools for the first time. To get the image on your block, what you're going to want to do is flip your piece over, and you're going to want to use oil pastels to just color the back. And you're going to really just mess it up, put color all over it. And we're going to do the transfer process that we used before, where we're going to apply pressure, but this time instead of it making the foam kind of be crushed and make lines on the foam, it's just going to leave marks on our rubber so we can see where our picture is. So I have that all set to go. I'm going to put it onto my print block, get it kind of lined up, and then I'm just going to go over my lines with pencil. And when I lift up, you can see it marks it up very lightly with the oil. And then I can go in with a Sharpie and just draw my lines so that they don't fade or smudge. So I have my owl, and then I could go back in and add in the details of his face. So I could go around his beak, his eyes, and just outline everything so that I know where stuff goes on my print. Lift it up. I can now kind of see very lightly the details, and I will outline them so that I don't lose them and they stay there. So I'll outline my eyes, outline the tummy, etc., etc. I have trees, so I'm just going to quickly freehand those in, but you'd want to transfer them, and then my moon. There we go. Now I'm kind of ready to start carving. For safety reasons, you're going to want to be very, very careful with the blades. There's basically 3 types of blades you can use. One has sort of a V shape to it, and it'll cut really nice, clean lines, but again, the tips are very sharp. We have a detail tool, which has a teeny tiny tip. And then we have a curved U-shaped tool, which is used to remove a big space. Like if I want to remove my moon, that's the way to go. And to use your printmaking tool, what you're going to do is you're going to grab a handle from the mint cart that's behind my desk. And you will want to unscrew the top a little bit, and there's a little groove in there that one end of your blade will fit into, and it's the end that has writing on it. I'm going to go ahead, and if you wiggle it, it should fit right into the handle, and then you just want to screw it tight. I'm always going to cut away from my hand, so making sure, just be aware I'm holding down here and cutting away. Anything I cut away will stay the color of the paper. If I don't cut something away, it's going to turn the color of the ink, which is going to be black in this case. My best suggestion when you're first carving, you don't have to apply too much pressure. And I always think it's best to do the outlines of things. And notice I'm always keeping my hand behind, and I'm even turning the block to make a cut. So there is the outside of my moon. And then I would go in probably with that U-shaped tool and just remove the material where I want it to stay white. So I'm just cutting across. I do not want to cut all the way through my rubber, so just make sure you're removing a little bit. You don't want the blades to disappear. Just make sure you can see the tops poking out, and just work your way across. Start removing the material. You can see I've already cut away one on the back. If you do make a mistake, you can always flip it over and use the back of your rubber foam block. So that's not a big deal. The other thing you may have noticed I just did was these little pieces of rubber should just be thrown in the trash. If they get in your ink, they're going to cause all sorts of weird problems for you. So make sure to throw those away. The actual blades of the printmaking materials are going to go into a foam organizer that's behind my desk on the mint cart. It looks like this, and you just want to take your blade and press it right back where it goes. So this was my U-shaped blade, so it's just going to go right back there. My TA or Gil, my sub, will check to make sure these are all in place before you leave class each day. So that is the basics of cutting. Hey everybody, I wanted to show you, once you have your print block all carved and set to go, just how to pull a proof and then do your addition of 5 prints. This I'm sure will be review, but whenever you are printing, you want to work on a blue tray just to contain the mess. And you're going to use about a dime to quarter size amount of ink, but then almost every single time you want to add to it. And you're going to roll out your slab, which is that name for the ink when it's rolled out in kind of a rectangle shape. And I want to listen for that sizzling appearance of like velvet, or it sounds like bacon sizzling. And that's how I know the ink is spread out properly. So looking, I can see it's kind of got that velvety look to it. It's not too goopy. So I am set to go. And then I'm going to take my print block and I'm going to roll straight across. And then I'm going to go back and get more ink, and I'm going to go the other direction. And then in theory, my lines start to show up. Now you can see that there are spots where I may need to carve away, but when I pull my proof, I'll get a better sense of what I need to adjust. So I'll go ahead and do that. And just like usual, I'll put the paper right on top. I like to use a roller just to add a little bit of pressure to really make sure it transfers my image to the paper. But this is sort of a personal preference thing. You also can use a spoon. Just decide what kind of works best for you. And then I can pull my print up. Get a sense of how it looks. I definitely can see that there's some line or some chatter there, but this sort of looks like the cloud to me, so I don't mind it. I do notice that on the edge here, there is a line up, which I do not want. So I'm going to go ahead and carve that away. But I would write the word proof right on here. And once I make my adjustments, I can start pulling my addition of 5 prints. Now I'm sure we remember cleanup's really, really important. I want to wash the ink off of my block. If it dries on here, it's going to give you trouble. So make sure to do that. And then also, of course, you're going to take your dishes over to the sink, use that paper towel, do circular motions until the ink comes off, and let it dry in the drying rack next to the sink.